Welcome to another episode of Living with Purpose. And I have probably one of the most well connected human beings I ever know, MR Rangaswamy. MR, as we affectionately call him, is the founder and the head of Indiaspora. Indiaspora is this amazing organization that brings together the Indian diaspora to show up in the countries where they reside and to show up back into India. And he does a whole range of efforts that goes just beyond giving back, but it is really about engaging the way you are in the communities that you exist in. Amar, as I started off by saying, is probably one of the most connected person that I know. If you need to find an introduction to any individual in the world, he is one phone call away from them. Amar has this ability to sit down and have a meal with poor people in a village. And in the evening, he would be at the residence of the prime minister or the White House having a black tie dinner. He is also a venture capitalist having his offices on the erstwhile Sand Hill Road in Palo Alto. So please join me in welcoming MR.
Thank you, Akhtar. Thanks for having me.
MR, you have had quite a journey, right? Growing up in Chennai and then here in the Bay Area and talking to some of the most influential people in the world. So share with us just your journey and how you do what you do.
So Akhtar, grew up in Chennai, went to school there, went to college there, came here like many Indians to get a master's degree, do my MBA, and then by accident found myself in Silicon Valley. I had an early job in Houston where I met a consultant who looked at my background and said, "You have an MBA, you use computers. What the heck are you doing in Houston? You should be in Silicon Valley." And that one suggestion changed my mind. And this is something I want to tell everyone. So if you feel like you have to do something, you do it. You don't procrastinate, you don't think about it, you just plunge in if you can, right? And so I just wrote a bunch of letters in those days with my resume to a bunch of companies in Silicon Valley. And keep in mind, this was 1982. We didn't have the internet. I didn't know anybody in Silicon Valley. And I heard this magical place existed. But I just did it. I wrote letters with resumes. And lo and behold, it resulted in a job. And soon in 1982, I was now in Silicon Valley.
So talk a little bit about your journey in Silicon Valley.
I started off in a startup. I didn't know it at that time because we didn't call them startups in 1982. It was a company. The company did $1 million of revenue in year one, 3 million in year two, 8 million in year three, and then went chapter 11, went broke. And that's when I realized most Silicon Valley companies fail. 90+% fail and very few succeed. So here I was at the end of that 3-year journey saying, I need to do something else. But luck would have it, one of my old bosses had gone to a little company called Oracle. And at that time, the CEO of Oracle and the founder, Larry Ellison, was looking for someone who had expertise in the application space. So I got hired into Oracle. My cube was outside Larry Ellison's office. And I really got to know the founder firsthand, how smart he was, how he made decisions and so forth. And that helped me a lot as I went through my journey. But then again, after a few years at Oracle of being a vice president of applications marketing, launching their applications product, I got the bug to do a startup again. Oracle had become a bigger company and I wanted to go back into a startup. So plunged into my next startup. Lo and behold, same pattern. Company doubled every year and in 3 years it went broke. Either I shouldn't stay in the company longer than 3 years, or the company goes broke, right? That went broke. So it was second failure. But then the third time I was lucky, I guess third time's a charm. I went with a company that we helped take public. And as the rest, as they said, is history. So that was my quick journey in Silicon Valley. But then after the IPO, I traveled 300,000 miles in 1 year. That's 12 times around the world. In a single year. And I said, hey, enough is enough. I need to settle down. I need to have a family. So I quit and just started a new journey. I didn't know where I was going, but I quit. And the new journey led me to become one of the early angel investors in Silicon Valley, where it led the Wall Street Journal to follow me for 2 days and put me on the front page and use the word angel in quotes, which means that was the first time they were using this word in context of investors. Before that, everybody was called a VC. I wasn't a VC. I just had my own money. I didn't take other people's money to
Yeah.
invest. And so there was a new category created. I guess I was one of the early guys who was in that space in 1995, 96 to become an angel investor. But my passion really, Akhtar, was to build communities. I really, with my marketing background, I'd always run user conferences and user groups, and I really enjoyed being with people. And so I started on a new journey after my tech career to start communities that make an impact. The first one I built was called Enterprise, where we got 100 CEOs in the tech sector who are B2B, running B2B software companies to get together. But again, the purpose was to discuss insider issues, to discuss how they were buying and selling their own companies, firing their management team, all the stuff you couldn't discuss in a public forum, to do it in private. But they would all become members of a group, and they would actually, today's world, pay $10,000 a year to be a member, knowing that the entire profits of this group, after running our events and so forth, would go to nonprofits. So that was my first step as becoming a philanthropist, actually formal philanthropist, to have a business model that actually gave all the surplus money to nonprofits.
This is awesome, right? So you kind of gone from being in the tech sector to moving into building communities. Then how did Indiaspora come to you, and how did you actually start launching that?
Yeah, so I'd done my tech community. Then a second community I started because I had two young daughters. I wanted to be a good role model. So I started a second community called the Corporate Eco Forum, which is a membership group of 85 of the world's largest companies to work on climate change issues. So I'd done that. And then meanwhile, I was going back and forth to India, helping out Indian startups. I used to host a big event in Bangalore for startup founders, which we grew with a partnership with NASSCOM, which is a big IT organization in India, from a few hundred entrepreneurs in 2010 to 2,500 entrepreneurs in 2020. So I'd done a lot of work with India, and then I started thinking, instead of traveling to India and doing stuff, can I do something for people who lived in the US, the Indian diaspora itself? Which then I started socializing this idea in 2011 and actually started Indiaspora as a nonprofit in 2012 to be kind of a cliche in a sense. We called it to be a force for good. And this can mean a lot to a lot of people, but we really meant this because we as Indians have, right from our childhood, grown up with seva or service, selfless service to the community. And when I look back, my father passed away when I was 10 years old, and my mother gave selfless service to raise me when she was a single mother at that time, to raise me, to put me through school and college. And that left an indelible mark on me to say, I should do service. If I've been so lucky to have my mother take care of me and go through all the sacrifices she had to do, that was the least I could do for other people. And that's why I think I became a philanthropist, really with this concept of service in mind.
I just find Indiaspora to be absolutely an amazing entity, and the impact it has had in such a short period of time is just massive. So share just a little bit about why that community is important, and maybe some of our listeners might actually get inspired to join.
Yeah, so Akhtar, with Indiaspora, like I said, the foundation was to be a force for good, which means it was not a business organization, it was not a cultural organization, it was not a traditional nonprofit. Rather, it was a network and a platform to get the entire community to do philanthropy, to give back, to give service, to share, collaborate, mentor. And that's the ethos of the organization. So it's a group where we get together and help, whether it's to give back. For example, when India went through a dreaded wave of COVID, in 1 month, the Indiaspora community raised $15 million for relief to give to India. At the same time, we raised $1 million for relief to all the food banks in the US. So again, rising up when there was a crisis, doing good. That's at the heart of what we do. Even today, we have something called the India Giving Day, where once a year we do 1 day of online giving, where you go in to a website, put in your credit card, put in an amount, put in an organization, and you give. Giving is the heart of it. We also mentor young entrepreneurs. We also stand up for the community. When Black Lives Matter happened, we came out in support. When there's been hatred against minorities, we've come out against hatred. So we get involved with the community, involved in giving, involved in helping, kind of what we do. And then over time, it's not been an overnight success, as you allude to. It's 12
Yeah.
years in the making, but we're now a global organization. We have chapters and members in Canada, UK, Singapore, UAE, Australia, and even in India. So now we've become a global group, again, that focuses on helping and giving and the selfless service that the community does.
So this is awesome. Also, I mean, I just want to kind of, to our listeners, this is also a bipartisan organization. It doesn't really engage in politics of any sort, and it supports and its members are from all walks of life and not just entrepreneurs. And it's something that it also tries to promote younger people and the Indian diaspora to participate in the community and become politically active.
Absolutely. One of the early things we did, Doctor, is on a nonpartisan basis, we encouraged people to run for office. In 2012, there was no representation by our community in Congress. So, by our encouragement, i.e., individual contributions to these people to run for office, in 3 election cycles, we had a big gala, Indiaspora Gala in DC, where the Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, and many others came to recognize that Indian Americans were now a force in politics because we were not only 1% of the population, we became 1% of Congress. We had 5 people in Congress in 2017, including our Vice President, Kamala Harris. But that encouraged over 300 people to run for office in the last election in the US. City council, school board, mayor, people ran for all kinds of office because they saw role models out there who had already run for office. Not only political office, but also public service. If you recall, both in the Obama administration, then in the Trump administration, and now in the Biden administration, the growing number of Indian Americans who serve in the administration has increased to now in the Biden administration, there are over 150 Indian Americans in the administration in very high positions. So again, it's not just political service, but public service is something we encourage our community to do.
So let's shift gears. Talk a little bit about why is purpose important to you and how do you show up with purpose? You've kind of alluded to it, but maybe just a little bit more about the importance of purpose.
Yeah, I would say it came to me by accident. And like I look back, and I think it's because of my mother. The way she served me, my family, the community she lived in is what really subliminally my inspiration, I think. And so, really, my purpose really is to help others. And, whether it's something to do with giving to someone some money or helping them with something or volunteering, I think really at the heart of what my purpose is to serve others and to help others. And that's why I wake up every day pretty excited. I don't need to do this. I can kick back and play golf and have fun. But really, I wake up every day pretty excited because there's always something to be done for the community, for an individual who might need some help. And so really, I would say my purpose is seva. Simple, one word.
That's such an important word, right? Service. Seva equals service. And I've always said that, it's let's not get our kids to think about who they want to be, but let's get them to actually think about who they want to serve. And by deciding who they want to serve, they can actually then become who they want to be. And it's just a little shift in perspective that actually starts with this whole notion of seva and service. So, Emma, this is just an absolutely brilliant concept. So, talk about how seva and purpose allows you to overcome difficult times. I'm quite sure you've had lots of difficult times in this amazing journey of yours.
Absolutely. Nothing comes easy. As you know, nothing is an overnight success. And like I said, even in my business life, like I mentioned, I had 2 failures in startups and then found luck in the third one. Whenever you go through that, when you give, when I was at these startups, I gave my heart and soul into the company, and to be devastated at the end, it's pretty heartbreaking. And to come out of it, you really need some strength and determination. And so the way I look at it is when you're hit and you're down, that is the time when you had to brush off things. You can't keep looking back and say, oh my God, bad things have happened to me. Of course, bad things have happened to you, but you got to look forward. And that's very hard to do. I know it's very, very hard to do. It's easy to say, but it's hard to look forward when you're down and out. But you do little things to come out of it, right? You can't just break through and go forward. So you do little things, and that's why Nike's slogan is my slogan as well, which is the old slogan of just do it. So the only way to get out when you have a hard time or a tough time in life or a setback is to just move forward, even if it's a little bit. So when people come to me and they're forlorn and disappointed and dejected and they want to do something, I say, take a little step. It's not like I'm asking them to just go forward all the way when they can't do it with their way they are in life. So just take a little step forward, do something. If you need a job, you can't get a job tomorrow, but take the first step. Do your resume, meet with friends, ask for help, apply to jobs, go to interviews. It's one step at a time, but just keep doing it. And those little steps will eventually lead you to the goal, because it's too hard to just get a job. You have to take all these steps to get a job and take those little steps. And so my slogan is just do it.
I love it. I love that slogan. Let's end with this one kernel of wisdom, your golden nugget that you can share to our audience.
Yeah, so I would get this message to, I think at this point, to the younger people who are out there who might listen to this podcast and get something out of it, is young people now, Akhtar, are going to live 100 years. That's a long lifespan. When our parents, they lived only 60 or 70 years, maybe we'll live for 80 or 90 years. But the next generation, the longevity is going to increase to 100 years. So what I tell young people is follow your passion early on in your life in your 20s. You don't need to settle down, get married, have kids all by the age of 25, only to have 75 years of your life to live, right? So enjoy your 20s where you pursue a passion, go work in a nonprofit, do travel the world, take a gap year, do things you want to do, because there's a long journey ahead of you. Find yourself, find your purpose, like you eloquently put in your own book. What is your purpose in life? Find that first, and then start your journey for the remaining 70, 80, 90 years of your life. That's the advice I want to give young people.
This notion of showing up, what Amar is actually saying is show up. Show up the way you are, show up with purpose, show up with authenticity, and not just focus on the self, but to focus on the common good. And if you focus on extending the common good, you then move into the service of others, which essentially becomes seva. It's not about giving back. It's really about being present. Because if you are present in every situation, now you actually are able to contribute in the most effective and authentic way. Emma, thank you so very much for being part of this podcast. Again, remember, purpose is that inner source of renewable energy that drives humanity forward. Live your life with purpose. Emma, thank you so much for your words of wisdom and kindness of being on the show.
Thank you so much, Akhtar.